Hello, I am Carlos Manyo, and the title of my journal is The Effects of Sensory Integration Interventions on Self Stimulating and Self Injurious Behaviors. Let's start with the occupational profile. Uh, my child, JLM, is a 10-year-old male diagnosed with ASD with sensory processing deficits, specifically vestibular, proprioceptive, and tactile. Next, we move on to definitions. Self-injurious behavior is one of two major categories of destructive behavior, and the other one is harm to others, according to National Institute of Health. Next is self-stimulating behavior. These are repetitive bodily movements which serve no apparent purpose in the external environment. Yeah, this we can see this as tapping of the fingers, flapping of the hands, or hitting self with your hand like that. Next is sensory integration. This is a planned controlled sensory input of either vestibular, proprioception, and tactile, and many more, with accordance to the child's neurological needs. And it is used to elicit a spontaneous adaptive response that integrates the senses of the child, which the purpose is to create a state of arousal, get the attention of the child, and sensitivity to environmental stimuli optimal for learning. We move on to the focused question. What is the interventions needed? So according to my journal, they gave sensory integration in a form of and tabletop activities like sorting color or shape, writing activities, puzzles, placing pegs on pegboard. So the journal said that they mix sensory integration with tabletop activities. Next, for whom is the intervention? The intervention is for individuals with autism that present with self-injurious and self-stimulating behaviors. Next, what is the purpose of the intervention? The purpose of the intervention is to see the effects of the intervention to the occurrence of self-injurious and self-stimulating behavior. So the researchers provided sensory integration intervention to see if the occurrence of self-injurious and self-stimulating behaviors would decrease. Next, we move on to review process. What are the inclusion criteria? So the researchers included individuals who regularly engage in self-injurious and self-stimulating behaviors, also individuals diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorders or severe profound mental retardation. Next, what were the exclusion criteria? Uh, Individuals were included if they choose to withdraw from the study, and individuals who do not present with self-injurious and self-stimulating behaviors. Next, we move on to quality control. Who reviewed the study? The person who reviewed my study was Alisa Christine G. Bacani, and and what she did was she read the journal and asked me if the interventions were appropriate for my child. She asked me if my child had sensory processing difficulties, and she suggested that this study could help my child and help me with the intervention. The other reviewer for the study was the American Journal of Occupational Therapy, and according to the study, it did not mention the role of adjunct in the review process. Next, the strategies I used for searching for studies was browsing the internet, specifically browsing these databases, which are Google Scholar, Science Direct, and AJOT, or American Journal of Occupational Therapy. And what were the key search terms I used? First, I used autism. Next is self-injurious behavior, followed by self-stimulating behaviors, sensory integration, decrease, and lessen. And I only used one level of evidence for this study, which is level 2. Yeah. For evaluating the interventions, the intervention used in this study is sensory integration. The level of the study is level 2, and it is a randomized controlled trial. The participants here are individuals who regularly engage in self-injurious and self-stimulating behaviors diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorders and severe profound mental retardation. The outcomes measured in this journal was the frequency of engagement in self-stimulating and self-injurious behaviors. And the implication of this study to OT is it would provide evidence of the effects of sensory integration on the engagement in self-stimulating and self-injurious behaviors. Aside from that, we can use the different interventions they use, like mixing sensory integration into the tabletop activities they use mentioned earlier. Okay, that ends my reporting. Thank you for listening.